A man died on camera, and the network moved filming to a safer track the very next season. A 33-year-old woman raced her way to a final round appearance 2 weeks before she flew to Germany for treatment and died 6 weeks later. The face of the show walked away mid-run and spent 3 years watching the network try to replace what he had built. And the original cast scattered into independent events, while the production company waited for someone to blink first. By the end of 2025, Speed Promotions Racing had canceled the season's final races, with no television deal in place and the original Street Outlaws era gone forever. So, why did this promising show collapse so completely? Join us as we uncover the full story of how Street Outlaws fell apart, how a silly idea became a cult phenomenon. On June 10, 2013, Discovery Channel aired the first episode of Street Outlaws, a show that producer Craig Piligian and his company, Pilgrim Media Group, had pitched as a documentary about a group of street racers in Oklahoma City who maintained an unofficial ranking system called The List. The initial concept was modest, and the expectations were low. Dominator, one of the core members of the 405 crew, initially refused to participate because he believed the whole thing was an FBI sting operation designed to identify and arrest the people who had been racing on Oklahoma City's old Route 66 for years. Doc was all in from the first conversation. A ZN had all but sold his car by the time the crew showed up to film. The show they all said yes to, reluctantly and selectively, with the expectation that it would not amount to anything, aired its pilot episode on a Monday night and drew an audience nobody had calculated. The premise was genuinely simple. Justin Shearer, known on the show as Big Chief, served as the race master of the list, meaning he decided who raced whom and adjudicated the outcomes. The 405 crew, named for the Oklahoma City area code, competed against each other and against outside challengers to move up or down the ranking. Nobody was a professional racer. Nobody had a sponsor, a publicist, or a media trainer. Sean Ellington, Murder Nova, was a diesel mechanic who described the show's earliest days as a stupid that he could not believe it had an audience. It had a million-strong audience. Within one season, AZN was selling stickers at a race appearance and making $1,000 a night, and could not understand how that was possible. Within 3 seasons, fans were lining up 150 feet from the track fence at events just to be near the cars. The first episode aired bittersweet, though. Flip Chris Fletcher had been a core member of the 405 crew and appeared in the pilot. He died on May 28, 2013, 12 days before the first episode broadcast, killed in a motorcycle accident at 40 years old before he ever knew the show had an audience or that the audience was going to be as large as it was. The show that introduced him to a national audience aired after he was already gone, and his car, an El Camino called the Old Slut, sat in Big Chief's barn for a year before Kamikaze. Chris took the wheel in a decision that Chief framed as a tribute. The car needed a new driver. It needed to be someone a little bit crazy, and Kamikaze was the right kind of crazy. It was the first time the show lost someone. It would not be the last, and the losses that came after were harder to absorb because the show was bigger by the time they arrived. So what was it about these particular Oklahoma City mechanics and their list that hooked 5 million people a week? And what happened when the face of the whole thing decided it was no longer the show he had built? Big Chief and the show he left behind. Justin Shearer grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, moved to Oklahoma City at age 12, and was watching street races on Route 66 from his bicycle before he was old enough to drive. By the time Discovery came calling, he had been competing in and managing the local street racing scene for over a decade, and had developed a reputation as someone who understood how the scene worked and had the authority to make decisions others accepted. The racemaster role on the show was not a production invention. It was a reflection of a role he had already been playing in the community for years. He was also, from the first episode, the show's de facto narrator, conscience, and protagonist. When things went wrong in the 405, Chief was usually the one who had to resolve it. When out-of-town crews came to challenge the list, Chief was usually the one at the front of the response. He described the racemaster role not as a title the show invented, but as a reflection of a responsibility he had already been carrying in the Oklahoma City racing community for years before any camera arrived. The person who made decisions about who raced whom and whose authority the other racers respected, because it had been earned on the street rather than assigned by a production company. He had married Alicia Shearer, who had come in to fill up her car at a gas station when he was 18. They married in 2006 and remained married until they separated and divorced in 2017, after a decade together, and 2 sons, Corbin and Coville. Chief denied the rumors of infidelity that circulated during the separation and maintained that the divorce was the right decision for both of them. He moved forward publicly with fellow racer Jackie Brosh, who appeared frequently on the show alongside him, and whose own racing background and passion for the same world Chief had spent his life in, made the relationship look less like a celebrity rebound and more like a natural continuation of who he already was. What Chief told YouTube viewers in March 2022 was that the direction the show was taking no longer resembled something he had helped build. The production changes that accompanied the expansion into No Prep Kings and America's List had moved the show away from the street racing philosophy that had been its identity, toward a more structured competition format with rules he had not made and did not agree with. He said specifically that he could not stand up to defend rules and decisions he had not made and did not agree with. He cited the Race Your Way In policy as an example of a change that he believed was unfair to certain racers. Cast member James Goad, known as Reaper, posted a public response questioning Chief's characterization of events and his character, and the whole exchange played out in the open across YouTube and social media, as these things now do. Chief's departure left the show without the person who had given it its center of gravity. The production company attempted to compensate by introducing new formats, new casts, and continued expansion of the franchise. Murder Nova took over leadership of the 405 crew in his absence. The show continued, but the audience that had been watching since 2013 knew the difference between what had existed and what was trying to replace it. And then, in August 2022, something happened on a road in the Las Vegas desert that changed the conversation entirely. The night Ryan Fellows died on camera. Ryan Fellows was 41 years old, a husband, and the father of an 18-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. He drove a gold Nissan 240Z and raced under his own name. He had been part of the Street Outlaws, Fastest in America cast, which pitted regional crews against each other across different American cities. And he was in Las Vegas on the night of August 7, 2022, for the 8th of 9 scheduled races for a filming session on Las Vegas Boulevard near the Harry Allen Generating Station. Fellows lost control of the 240Z near the finish line. The car rolled and caught fire. Bystanders attempted to pull him from the burning vehicle and were unsuccessful. He was dead at 41 on a road that had not been prepped to any standard required by organized drag racing, filmed by a crew that did not have the safety infrastructure that sanctioned events require as a baseline. The Nevada Department of Transportation confirmed they had issued a permit to close the street for filming. OSHA launched an investigation. Discovery released a statement calling the death heartbreaking and extending sympathy to his family. His wife, Elizabeth, and son Josiah spoke to local media the following day. Elizabeth said she thought it was a joke when she got the call. Josiah said he thought he was in a nightmare. A GoFundMe raised money for the family while the network processed a death that had happened in front of their cameras. In February 2023, the Fellows family filed a wrongful death lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court against Warner Bros. Discovery and Lionsgate Entertainment, alleging gross negligence. The lawsuit stated that the road where the crash occurred was 12 feet wide, compared to the industry standard of 30 feet for drag racing. They alleged that the network had witnessed numerous crashes at the location before Fellows died and had repeatedly declined to move filming to a safer venue, describing the decision to continue racing on the unprepared desert road as an extreme departure from reasonable care. After Fellows died, the family noted, production moved to a dedicated 75-foot-wide drag strip at a professional California raceway. The family argued that this change proved the availability of a safer alternative had been known and available the entire time. The lawsuit did not end the show, but the conversation it reopened about what the show was actually asking its participants to risk in exchange for television exposure did not go away. And it arrived at exactly the moment the franchise was already losing its identity. So if losing its face and losing a cast member to a preventable crash were not enough to end the Street Outlaws era, what finally was? Lizzy Musi and the loss the racing community couldn't absorb. Lizzy Musi was 30 years old and the first woman to win a pro nitrous national event at the Professional Drag Racers Association, U.S. Drags, when she joined Street Outlaws, No Prep Kings, and became one of the show's most compelling figures. Her father was Pat Musi, a legendary engine builder whose name meant something in drag racing long before Lizzy was old enough to race. She had been competing since she was a child and had the kind of natural authority on the track that cannot be taught. In 2023, she became the first female driver to win an event on No Prep Kings. It was the high point of a career that was already running out of time. In April 2023, Musi posted on Instagram that she had been diagnosed with triple-negative stage 4 breast cancer, which had spread to her lymph nodes and her liver. Triple-negative breast cancer is one of the most aggressive breast cancer subtypes, and the stage 4 designation meant it had already traveled beyond the original site. She was just 32 years old. She posted her diagnosis rather than disappearing from public view, and spent the following 14 months documenting her treatment on social media, raising awareness about the disease, and continuing to race whenever she was able to do so. In May 2024, she made the final round at Empire Dragway on No Prep Kings, finishing second in the points, and then announced she was taking a break from the show to fly to Germany for a specialized liver treatment that she had researched and believed offered a better option than what was available to her in the United States. She died on June 27, 2024, at her North Carolina home, surrounded by her family. Her father, Pat, announced it on Facebook with a photograph of his daughter behind the wheel. She was 33 years old. No Prep Kings Season 6, which premiered in October 2025, was dedicated to her memory. The Street Outlaws franchise had now lost Flip to a motorcycle crash, Ryan Fellows to a production-related wreck that became a wrongful death lawsuit, and Lizzy Musi to cancer. Its original lead had walked away. Its No Prep Kings format had continued, but without the gravitational pull of the original show's street-level authenticity, the audience had been quietly fragmenting. And then in late 2025, the economics caught up with the community. The end of the era nobody wanted to announce. In the autumn of 2025, Drag Illustrated published a feature on 4 original Street Outlaws cast members, Doc, Dominator, AZN, and Monza, who gathered at the inaugural 405 shootout at Mocon Dragway in Asbury, Missouri, while Speed Promotions Racing, the company formerly known as No Prep Kings, ran its season opener on the same weekend in California. The editorial note attached to the published version of that story read, "Since then, Speed Promotions Racing canceled the final races of its 2025 season, effectively ending the Street Outlaws era. After 15 seasons of the original show and countless spin-offs, many of the drivers were at a crossroads. With no television deal currently in place and fewer contracts being offered, they had to decide how to proceed. What the piece captured, in the words of the people who had been there from the beginning, was not bitterness, but something more honest and harder to resolve. Dominator described the first season as silly, stupid teenage stuff in their adulthood that somehow became 12 years of awesomeness. AZN talked about making $1,000 selling stickers at a race appearance and not believing it was real. Joe Woods, Dominator, described getting to a Thunder Valley event after Season 1 aired and finding the stands completely packed with fans who had driven hours to see them, and having to watch the race from the top of the bathroom building because there was no other place to stand. These were men who had said yes to a production company that showed up in Oklahoma City with cameras, not because they thought it would work, but because they were already doing the thing and it cost nothing to let someone film it. The thing worked for 12 years. Then the things that were true about it stopped being true, and the framework that depended on those true things stopped holding. By late 2025, the Street Outlaws' original brand had effectively splintered into 3 separate tracks. The original show, which had ended after 15 seasons with no renewal, No Prep Kings, which had continued under Speed Promotions Racing until that company canceled its remaining 2025 events, and the independent grassroots circuit that the original cast members were building for themselves outside of any network arrangement. The Discovery Channel airings had given way to streaming on HBO Max. The original show, Street Outlaws proper, completed 15 seasons and was not renewed. No Prep Kings continued on a separate track until Speed Promotions Racing canceled its remaining 2025 events and left the circuit without a clear successor. Big Chief was building Midwest street cars content for YouTube and building cars in an Oklahoma shop. Murder Nova was leading the 405 crew through whatever came next. The original cast members were making their own racing events, selling merchandise, appearing at shows, and doing what street racers have always done when the organized structure fell away. Racing anyway, on whatever terms they could arrange for whoever showed up to watch. What ended was not the racing. What ended was the specific arrangement that had turned a group of Oklahoma City mechanics into national television personalities, and had done so well enough to sustain itself for more than a decade before the weight of its own contradictions, its losses, and the changing economics of cable television finally brought it down. So, where does that leave the people who built it? And is there anything left of the Street Outlaws world when the cameras are taken away? The original cast members who built Street Outlaws are in their 40s, and in Big Chief's case, mid-40s. They are running businesses, raising children, building cars, and racing at independent events that exist because the audience they built over 15 seasons of television has not entirely gone away. The 405 Shootout, which Doc, Dominator, AZN, and Monza attended in May 2025, drew a crowd. The crowd did not need a television deal to show up. What had been built in those years, the community, the reputation, the recognition, was not contingent on Discovery Channel renewing anything. Big Chief continues to run Midwest Street, maintaining more than 800,000 followers on Instagram and generating income through merchandise, content, and racing appearances. Murder Nova oversees the 405 in Big Chief's institutional absence. The show's other principal contributors, Farm Truck and AZN, Doc, Daddy Dave, Ryan Martin, and Kamikaze, have varying degrees of involvement in the no-prep circuit and independent events. Ryan Martin won the NPK Championship 3 times over 4 seasons and remains one of the most decorated competitors in the format's history, which the show helped create. Kai Kelly, whose breakup with Lizzy Musi in 2023 preceded her diagnosis by months, continues to race. The racing community that Street Outlaws made visible to millions of people on Monday nights still exists on the same roads and strips where it existed before any camera showed up. What's your take on how the show ended, and where did the crack come from? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.